I'll never forget that night. It was supposed to be ordinary. Dinner with my sister, while Ben, my husband, stayed home with our son, Ryan. We'd hired Jenna, a sweet girl from down the block, to babysit for us many times. She had always seemed so responsible and innocent, but I suppose that's how it often goes with betrayal. It creeps up from the shadows, hidden in plain sight. I came home earlier than planned. My sister had felt unwell, and I wanted to check in on Ryan and maybe surprise Ben. As I entered, the house was quiet, almost too quiet. I expected to hear Ben in the kitchen or the faint hum of the TV. Instead, it was just silence. It was then that I noticed the faint sound of laughter and murmuring from upstairs. My heart froze. Something felt wrong, deeply, irreversibly wrong. Tiptoeing up the stairs, I tried to steady my nerves. With every step, a hollow ache grew within me. The closer I got, the more my intuition screamed. I didn't want to believe it, but as I pushed open the slightly ajar bedroom door, my world shattered. There, in the dim light of our bedroom, was Ben with Jenna. For a moment, I could only stand there, breathless, my mind fighting to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. Ben turned at the sound of the door, his expression shifting from blissful to frozen shock as he realized I was there. Jenna's face mirrored his horror, but my gaze remained locked on him, struggling to understand how the person I had trusted most could betray me so deeply. The weight of it all sank into me, my chest tightening as I held back tears. My mind raced back to the countless moments we'd shared, the small gestures and promises whispered between us over the years. Those memories, once my comfort, felt like shards now, painfully pressing into every thought. And as he opened his mouth to say something, anything, I turned away, the urge to flee overpowering my instinct to demand answers. Silence stretched between us, thick with the words left unsaid. Finally, I took a steadying breath, willing myself to stand tall. I wasn't sure where I would go or what I'd do next, but I knew I had to leave. For the next few days, I was a shell of myself. Ben tried apologizing, begging even, but I barely heard him. In my mind, images of that night replayed like a nightmare on a loop. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the betrayal, the deceit in Ben's eyes. Finally, he left to stay with a friend, and I found myself alone in the quiet house, still reeling from the betrayal. Then, like a sudden gust of clarity, an idea came to me. Ben had a best friend, Will, who had always been kind to me. He had been at our wedding, celebrated every milestone with us, and had become like family. I knew Will had always looked at me a certain way, a way I'd brushed off as friendly admiration. But now, as I thought back on those glances, and the way he had been supportive through Ben's endless mistakes, I started to wonder. Revenge had never been in my nature, but betrayal has a funny way of changing things. I texted Will, asking him if he wanted to catch up for a coffee. The moment I hit send, a thrill ran through me, accompanied by nerves and doubt. But my mind was set. A few days later, we met at a cozy little coffee shop. Seeing him brought back memories of all our shared laughter, our mutual fondness. When he asked how I was holding up, his voice was so warm, so genuinely concerned that I almost broke down. I hadn't realized how much I needed someone to be there, just to listen. We chatted for hours, the minutes blurring into a fog of laughter and shared glances. I confessed more than I intended, my anger, my heartache, and my need to feel wanted again. His hand rested over mine, and for a moment, I was reminded of all the qualities Ben had lost somewhere along the way. I felt a spark, something I hadn't felt in ages. Days went by with us meeting again and again, our connection growing deeper, stronger. Will became my anchor, steady and safe. But even then, I wasn't sure where it was all headed. Until that night. We were at his apartment, talking over a glass of wine, and he looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. He was so close, and in that instant, all the frustration and longing flooded to the surface. I kissed him, a raw, passionate kiss that seemed to unleash something within both of us. As our kiss deepened, a part of me wanted to pull back, to stop before things went too far. But there was another part, a part that wanted to embrace the moment, to feel desired, cherished. I wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. I was thinking about Will and how he made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. He held me close, his hands tracing gentle, reassuring pats down my back, as if he understood the years of hurt I'd carried. Our breaths mingled, soft and heavy in the quiet of his apartment, and everything else seemed to fade away. I felt his fingers lace through my hair, guiding me to look into his eyes. There was a tenderness there, something almost sacred. And I could feel him holding back, as if he knew this moment meant something far deeper than passion alone. Slowly, his lips traveled along my neck, leaving soft kisses that sent shivers through me. His touch unearthing a longing that had been buried for so long. The world outside disappeared as he lifted me, carrying me toward the bed with a gentle strength that made my heart pound. He laid me down slowly, his eyes never leaving mine, and the warmth of his touch melted any remaining hesitation I had. His fingers brushed over my skin, exploring the contours of my shoulders, my arms, like he wanted to memorize every inch of me. Each touch felt deliberate, as if he was reminding me what it was like to feel safe, to feel cherished. His hands found mine, fingers intertwining, and as he kissed me again, there was a reverence to it, an unspoken promise in the way he held me. We moved together, a slow, unhurried rhythm that felt like an awakening. There was no rush, only the steady connection we had built, one that seemed to deepen with every whispered word and gentle caress. I felt vulnerable and exposed in the most beautiful way, wrapped in the warmth of his embrace. As I lay there, entwined with him, it wasn't just a moment of intimacy. It was a moment of healing, a piece of myself being restored. In his arms, I felt whole again, like I was rediscovering the parts of me I thought I had lost forever. We spent that night together, and it was everything I had craved but never allowed myself to realize I needed. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt whole, like my heart was healing in the warmth of his touch. The next morning, as the sunlight crept through the curtains, I looked at him beside me, peaceful and content. I felt a pang of guilt, but also a strange sense of closure. Ben's betrayal had torn me apart, but somehow, in the pieces, I had found someone who valued me, who wanted to hold those broken fragments and make me feel whole again. Eventually, I had to confront Ben. He had heard about Will and me, News travels fast in tight circles. He was furious, of course, hurt even, though I struggled to understand how he could feel anything but remorse. It was a messy, raw conversation that left both of us drained. In the end, we agreed to part ways. There was no fixing what had been broken. I had moved on, and he had long since checked out of our marriage.